Good morning, Jerry. Very happy to meet you here.
Good morning,
Thanks for taking
Salmaan.
the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation to the podcast today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Jerry, you are obviously a very seasoned person in the hedge fund space, and you've been at St. James Place since 2019, where you're leading corporate strategy, and you're obviously MD of Asia. And today's context is particularly exciting because as a major financial center, we've been experiencing some tremendous growth, including, and most interestingly, this inflow of some very, very talented institutional money managers and hedge funds and peoples in the alt space. So it's within that context that I'm super excited that you could join our podcast. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here as well. Thank you.
So I thought maybe a good place to start would be to provide our listeners with a bit of context and overview. And so I guess my question would be, you're obviously a very well-known name elsewhere in the world, particularly in the UK, in Dubai, in the Middle East. Perhaps there are people who may not know about you. So perhaps you could enlighten us about kind of the principles, the history, the heritage, and your path to the DIFC while you're here.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, thank you for that question. Maybe where I do want to start is by sharing what our fundamental beliefs as a business. We believe people generally are underinvested, underinsured, and underreturned. So what do I mean by that? Every day we speak to people who have personal aspirations, right? As we all do. They want to retire comfortably. They want to have the confidence that they can retain their lifestyle going into retirement. They want to send their children perhaps through private education. They want to ensure their family is provided for if something was to happen to them, as well as many other aspirations that will be all unique to us. Now, many of them will have awareness of the need to save or to achieve their financial goals. Some of them will even have some form of protection. But from our experience, we often find people are not saving or investing enough to achieve their goals, right? And we also find their assets are not earning enough returns for them, and they often don't have sufficient insurance protection against what they really worry about the most. And this is really why we're in business. Our purpose is to give our clients the confidence to create the future that they want. And we can achieve this by building trusted long-term relationships with our clients. How do we do that? Our advisors take time to listen carefully to our clients on their needs, on their concerns, on their aspirations. And it is through this detailed understanding that we offer our advice on how to achieve their goals and offer solutions to actually help them get there. So fundamentally, we believe in providing quality face-to-face advice through good quality and qualified financial advisors. And really, ultimately, we provide financial planning to help people achieve their financial aspirations. So maybe that's really outlining our beliefs, I guess. Let me probably take a step back and just kind of talk about who is St. James's Place. So St. James's Place, we were established in 1991 by our founders, Sir Mark Weinberg and the late Mike Wilson. We are listed on the London stock market and a member of the FTSE 100 index. Over the last 32 years, we have organically grown to become the largest wealth manager in the UK. We have 150 billion pounds sterling, or over 200 billion US dollars of client assets under our management. We are trusted by nearly 1 million clients across the UK, Hong Kong, Singapore, and now in the UAE as well, who has actually afforded us the privilege to manage their wealth. And our vision is to be the best place to create financial security. So what does that really mean, and how do we really differentiate ourselves? We do that through our 4,700 strong qualified expert advisors, as collectively we call them our partnership. We want to grow this in each of our locations, and we're always on the lookout for talented individuals who would like to join our success story. We also guarantee, and we think this is really unique for us, we guarantee the suitability of advice we offer to our clients. And we'll put them, therefore, should we find ourselves that the advice we provided was wrong, we will put the clients in the same position they would have been in if it's deemed that the advice we provide was wrong, right? This is somebody that nobody in the UK or international market can say that they do. We're also differentiated through our investment management approach. We believe that the best investment talent is not limited to just one firm or location. To manage our clients' money, our clients' investments, really, in the best way possible, we need to have the freedom, we need to have the flexibility to harness the skills of some of the world's most talented fund managers. And this is why we do not employ in-house investment managers. Instead, we select a number of external managers from across the globe to manage our funds. And this is something that we know that lots of wealth managers out there can only offer their clients a limited range of funds or managers. Our approach, however, gives access to fund management expertise that is often only available to large institutional or overseas investors. And these exclusive relationships really set our approach apart, giving our clients the diversification, the investment expertise that is beyond the scope of many wealth managers. Lastly, conscious I'm doing a lot of talking here, but that's probably the point. You also asked, why the DIFC? Now, Dubai has long established its position as a strategic wealth hub with what I think is immense growth potential. We believe a presence in the Middle East will present a wealth corridor supporting a new generation of internationally mobile clients. And this is the opportunity for us to expand our international reach for that and ourselves, as well as that for our partnership. We think we've chosen to work with the DIFC and the Dubai Financial Services Authority, given their reputation as, number one, leading jurisdiction in terms of wealth, but also strong regulators for international finance. We actually looked at opening an office in Dubai back in 2015. It didn't feel like opportunity was right back then, but since then, I think a few things would have changed, making Dubai and the DIFC much, much more interesting. First is the evolution of the regulatory environment. We really like it when there's a high standard in regulation. In some ways, it raises the barriers to entry, and in some other ways, it raises the overall performance and behavioral expectations of the industry. Second is that Dubai has gone from strength to strength in terms of its attraction of global talent, and we know that diversification from the oil economy will continue to bring more global talents to Dubai. So to finish that off then, since the opening of our DIFC office in May, we've actually been really welcomed into UAE by everyone we've spoken to, and our reception here has been really, really positive. So we feel very welcome, and thank you for what you've created here.
You're absolutely welcome. It's obviously a pleasure to have you. Jerry, I'm particularly keen on this theme on wealth. Obviously, this region has long had a reputation for pools of sovereign capital and institutional capital, but I think you've hit the nail on the head with the observation that in the last 3 to 5 years in particular, there's been a very sharp inflow. In addition to the already deep pools of capital, private capital here that require the expertise and the international kind of expertise that firms like you bring. In addition to that, there's been this massive inflow of ultra high net worth money and capital from around the world as wealth management is rapidly becoming a global enterprise in terms of diversification. So with that context, there are a lot of wealthy people, and that number seems to be certainly not decreasing in Dubai versus any other Middle Eastern city. So you alluded to your strength in this space. How are you tapping into this specifically? What are your plans?
I think that's a great question. I don't necessarily think it's just about wealth, right? For me, it's all about helping our clients addressing their complex financial planning needs. And all of this, it just comes down to that so that they can have the confidence to achieve their financial goals. For example, we know many expats in Dubai could be considered as global citizens, they're internationally mobile, and the likelihood is that they're going to have complex needs. Why is that? Because they're almost certain to have assets or earnings in more than one territory. And when that happens, the complication of your financial situation increases, and it's therefore all of a sudden not so obvious on what your solutions might be. And we also really like that education sort of driven approach, therefore, because many of our advisors spend their time, be it on individual basis or through seminars, they spend their time helping people understand how to grow their wealth and how to preserve their wealth and how to make their money work harder. In fact, I've recently had a pleasure of sort of engaging a group of senior leaders from across the financial services industry. And these people, worked in places like private equity, venture capitalists, bankers, and so forth. So they are, in many ways, sophisticated investors who invest significant amounts of money on behalf of their clients. And you would think, therefore, they would have a fairly good understanding of their own personal finances. And the surprising thing was, many of them just don't. They just don't. And this is why an education-driven approach is really key here. Many people just don't realize the opportunities that could be unlocked through proper financial planning. And then before I finish on that question, what I do also really want to highlight is that we do not believe in aggressive sales tactics like cold calling, right? We want to do this right in this market, and we want to build a long-term business here. This means playing to our strengths of strong reputation, offering quality expert advice, and building long-term relationships with clients. The focus is absolutely on client relationship, and that's how we want to differentiate ourselves in this market. So for me, it's all about quality advice by quality advisors.
Makes perfect sense. And in our experience as a 20-year-old financial center, our observation is that key success factors for institutions that manage wealth, two things that you mentioned are spot on. One is obviously focus on relationship, and number two is having a holistic solution. So it's not just about generating a specific return on your capital, but really, really interested in what you said about a holistic approach to your clients, solving their problems, understanding their needs. And so speaking of which, look, that space, as you suggested, is changing. There are inflows of people from around the world. There's professionals, there's institutional people. When you look at wealth and asset management from your vantage point, what are you seeing in terms of changes or trends in behaviors, expectations? How about a view on the digital requirements for your clients?
Well, yeah, there's quite a broad range of different things, but let me probably answer them in turn. So let me start by answering the outlook for the wealth management industry. And I will always start whenever I think about that, I always start with clients. And I think clients right now, they need advice more than ever, right? Why is that? First of all, in this region, we know there's going to be limited state provision for the expat community. And this means clients will have to save more and save for longer. Then there's the uncertainty and information overload. We know clients want to retain control, but then again, more than ever, they are unsure what to do next. There's also a lot of volatility in the markets at the moment. We know a lot of clients are nervous, and that's why we think it's really important to think long-term and not to try and time the market or time the entry into investments. And lastly, the regulator expectation is only ever going one way. And we love that, as I said earlier. We believe more regulation, especially in this market, the better. So I think the combination of these factors will tell us that, really there will be more demand for good quality advice going forward. So I think that's probably generally set out, my outlook for the wealth management industry. The one thing I think is probably worth drawing out or kind of going back on, kind of spelling out further is probably the investor behaviors and expectations. From our experience, clients get nervous when they see volatility in the stock market. And this is, fairly totally understandable. Right? This is absolutely typical human behavior as we're driven by our emotions. When stock markets fall, our emotions make us think that it could fall further. When the stock market rises, our emotions also make us believe they will rise further. But none of us, no one out there, myself included, actually know what's going to happen next to the stock market. We just don't. And this is why I think it's really important to have a plan and to stick to the plan, right? So what does that mean, to stick to the plan? First, I think it helps our clients to avoid making decisions driven by emotions. I think it's really important to think and act for the long term, even when it doesn't feel right in the short term. And especially, I think often people think that they have to do something, but do nothing, particularly when that's what your plan calls for, is often the most powerful thing. And this is actually really, really difficult to do and takes a lot of hard work because the market volatility is influencing your emotions all the time. And I think that's why it's particularly important for us to have a plan and to really stick to the plan. I think you'll touch on digitization. I mean, digitization is such a big subject. I'm quite a simple person, and therefore I generally try to think about it within the realms of my own living, right? So kind of just thinking how it has changed my own life. And I remember going with my dad into a local Blockbuster store, all of those years ago, on a Friday evening, to pick out a couple movies for the weekend. Probably starting to show my age, right? But we now have Netflix, which is incredibly easy to use. And the best thing is that they will even recommend the sort of things that I should watch or I would enjoy watching. And I think therefore the algorithm behind that is really incredible. As a family, we buy lots of things on Amazon. One of the things that my wife likes the most is actually the shortening of the delivery times. When Amazon first started, probably typical delivery time period was like 7 days. It's shortened to 3 days. It's now all about same day delivery. In fact, you can now time the slot and say, I want it tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Right? So digital has really made life easier and much, much more convenient. And this is kind of how we think about digital too at St. James's Place. We see digital as an enabler to help our advisors to do their jobs better. We see digital as a tool for our clients to maximize their experience with St. James's Place. And we're absolutely investing heavily into this space. But I think what I do want to be absolutely clear of, though, is that digital will not replace our face-to-face financial advice model. We believe our value is in building long-term trusted relationships so we can truly help clients achieve their financial aspirations.
Jerry Pai, thank you so much. Great talking with you.
Thank you very much, Salmaan.
Now, separately, I should say parenthetically, I do think that financial services in your business, it's kind of, to me, it's shocking that consumer power in other sectors like retail has gone through the roof. But financial services, even though it's your money, I'm still shocked at how little power consumers still have over money. Partially, I definitely agree with you on the education piece. I mean, I've been in finance all my life, and I'm like a behaviorally terrible person when it comes to investing. I have to force myself to, remind myself of compounding and do it, But it's shocking because I think it's, whether it's regulations or something, but the fact that we don't have as much control over our money is still really, really surprising to me,
It's fascinating. I mean, I talk to quite a lot of friends, etc., and often people will talk to me a lot about careers, right? How do you grow careers? How do you develop careers? Or with aspirations to move further. And often, the underlying driver will be, how do I improve my own financial situation as a result? But if we think about how much effort people put into career development versus financial planning, which is the other aspect in terms of how you can actually improve your own personal prosperity, then the two things are just not comparable at all.
I mean, I've always believed, even though I haven't, I'm starting to do it now with my kids a bit later than I wanted to. But why doesn't financial literacy start in middle school for everybody? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not teaching kids about that all there is to life is to make money. That's not the message. But the message is, I mean, here I'll give you an example. The robo-advisors that started here 6, 7, 8 years ago. The secret sauce was not in the tech at all. The most successful ones, you know what they did? They tapped into this generation of people who in this region who had no understanding about interest and compounding. Just the power of compounding alone. Just that message, it was kind of surprising. But anyway, but look, good stuff. I'm super psyched to meet you. Thanks for doing this.